Farm Basics is brought to you by the Liberty Link trait and Liberty herbicide from Bayer. The most reliable weed management solution, Liberty Link and Liberty herbicide are the link to efficient row crop production and sustainable weed management.
Why do farmers chop their stalks at the end of the season?
Well, when we look at a cornfield, and this one's a great example behind us, you see an awful lot of plants. In many cases, we're looking at 30 to 40,000 corn plants per acre, and those corn plants can also get 8 or 10 feet tall. Now, this field behind us only got to be about 8 feet tall, but you say only 8 feet tall, and 30 or 40,000 of those plants in every acre, that's a lot of plant residue to deal with. And for farmers, they're thinking about not only just harvesting this year's crop, but they're thinking about what they're going to plant in that field next year. So from that standpoint, the residue has to be managed.
So when it comes to this managing residue, what farmers always used to do is lots and lots of tillage. In other words, they would stir up the soil, bring up that black dirt, and they would bury some of this residue down, and then over time it would break down. Well, anymore, farmers don't want to do that because number one, it costs a lot of money. Number two, it leads to more erosion issues, and farmers are trying to overall build the organic matter levels in their soil. So that's my third point, is farmers want to build the organic matter levels, and when they do tillage, they deplete the organic matter levels. So for those reasons, farmers don't want to do all that tillage, and what they found is that if they can break up these stalks into tiny little pieces, and stalks, leaves, everything that's left after you take that ear of corn or those kernels of corn out of the field, you break it up into little pieces, it will deteriorate faster, the bacteria will break it down much more quickly.
Now, you talked about building organic matter there, Brandon. Organic matter in the soil is basically just decaying plant material. And for farmers, having more of that in the soil is good. It means a lot of good benefits for the soil, basically more nutrients in the soil, better water and nutrient holding capacity. So all those things are positives. But one other way, in addition to tillage, that farmers used to deal with residue, and still do to some degree in parts of the country, is they would actually bale up that plant residue on top of the ground. That was the only way they could really manage it, is just get it out of there. Then they'd be free to plant another crop. But when you take away all that plant residue, you're taking away all the nutrients that are in it as well. Now, in many cases, when they were taking away the plant residue, it would get fed to cattle or some other livestock, and in many cases, the manure would then get spread back in the field and bring those nutrients back. But for a lot of farmers these days, if they don't have livestock, baling up the residue is just not an option because they want to keep that nutrition in the field.
So again, what these farmers are doing, if they don't want to do major tillage to break down that residue, they're trying to chop this residue up. So back years ago, we used to run a stalk chopper, we called it, on our farm. So after the combine had run through, then we'd go through with this machine that would chop everything up really good. Well, now we've got heads on our combines that will do the chopping for us. So before we ever even run anything over and smash it down and make it hard to deal with, we chop it all up. So it's great. We end up with a lot of these little pieces out there, and they are going to break down much more quickly. What that means is a farmer can plant more easily in the spring, his ground is going to warm up more quickly in the spring, and also he's going to release those nutrients for hopefully his next crop.
Well, one of the biggest things for us on our farm is we're looking at our corn planter running through that field. We need to be able to move this residue around. When the pieces are 4 to 6 inches long, now I've got these small pieces of residue that we can easily kick out of the way so we can have a nice black strip where we're going to plant. For many of the reasons that Brian just mentioned.
4 to 6 inches long. So are you saying that's long, or are you saying that's short?
That's much shorter than dealing with an 8-foot tall plant.
Yep, but most of the time, if we can get it down to 2 or 3 inches even with these choppers on the corn heads, that's even better.
Well, the smaller the residue, the easier it is for us to push it to the side and allow us to plant at an even and consistent depth. And for corn farmers, that's really one of the keys to getting high-yielding corn. But the other thing, if we move that residue over in between the rows, that can keep the weed pressure down there. It also provides a cushion for our tractors and other field equipment to drive over, so we aren't packing on the ground as much. So there are just many benefits for having that residue out in the field. And also, when we think about rainfall, you don't think of rainfall as being this violent event unless it's some terrible storm, but just those raindrops hitting the soil, if they hit bare soil, they're going to splatter and splash that soil out. And we could lead to more erosion that way too. Having the stalks on top of the ground really protect our soil and our soil structure, which is another good benefit of leaving residue in the field.
Yep, so once again, farmers anymore are trying to reduce tillage overall to save money, to protect the soil, to just build organic matter in that soil. It's difficult to do as a farmer if you don't chop up that residue. You want it chopped in small pieces so it can break down much more quickly. There's just more exposed so bacteria can get to it, and hopefully in the future you have less residue to deal with. You end up with a better crop going forward.
Well, corn stalks are something we want to leave in our fields, but our weed of the week is something we definitely want out of our fields. Can you identify this week's weed?